Warrington, England. A peaceful afternoon at Culcheth Linear Park turned into an unimaginable tragedy.
There was no way she could have known, but this was the moment that Brianna Ghey left her home for the last time.
A young girl lost her life due to severe injuries caused by a sharp object.
The parole board will have to decide if and when either or both of you can be released. That will only happen if you no longer pose a danger.
Behind the incident were two teenagers once considered friends, and in the end, both paid the price with life sentences, facing many years in prison without the possibility of parole. Brianna Ghey was born on November 7, 2006, in the town of Warrington, and was described by her family as an intelligent, brave, and cheerful girl. From a young age, she went through various stages in her journey to affirm her gender identity, something that made her loved ones admire her strength even more. However, because of her differences, Brianna endured years of bullying at school without receiving adequate support from the authorities, and she was even attacked by groups of other students, while the Cheshire police took no concrete action. The prolonged trauma caused her to struggle with emotional distress and anxiety. At 16, Brianna attended Birchwood Community High School in the Birchwood area of Warrington, where she did not have a happy school experience. Social media became her only refuge. On short-form video platforms, Brianna quickly became an influencer with more than 63,000 followers, admired for her dance videos set to popular songs and her impressive makeup skills. However, the online world was not entirely safe for her. She was still often harassed, though she always tried to stay positive, sharing her journey to help others in similar situations understand that they were not alone. In her free time, Brianna often helped other transgender youths learn about hormone replacement therapy safely and legally, offered advice on reputable doctors, and constantly encouraged them to be more confident in themselves. Her friends said Brianna always made them feel beautiful, understood, and never let anyone feel inferior. She was truly an inspiration and a source of comfort for many transgender women in small towns who found solace and connection only through the internet. At the beginning of 2023, Brianna began planning to meet a friend she had gotten to know online. She intended to change her appearance by the end of the year by dyeing her hair and getting a few small cosmetic adjustments to feel more confident about herself. However, during that time, Brianna grew increasingly exhausted from the cruel treatment she received from certain people around her. She once confided in her friends that she felt hopeless after enduring constant mistreatment and verbal abuse, even mentioning that she wanted to end all her suffering. Not long after, Brianna posted a short video on her channel titled, "I Got Expelled from School." Despite the sadness behind it, she still tried to share her own experience to help those who had gone through similar situations feel understood and less alone. After months of exhaustion from being bullied and isolated at school, Brianna longed to have a real friend she could share her feelings with. That's why when Scarlett Jenkinson, a girl from her school whom she had recently met, reached out and invited her to hang out, Brianna happily accepted without a moment of hesitation.
There was no way she could have known, but this was the moment that Brianna Ghey left her home for the last time. A Saturday morning, on her way to meet people she thought were her friends.
On the morning of February 11th, 2023, Scarlett texted Brianna and invited her to meet at the Culcheth Library that afternoon, saying there would be a small get-together with a few friends. At 12:45 p.m., a doorbell camera captured Brianna leaving her home in the Birchwood area, phone in hand, her face bright and full of trust. Before leaving, she texted her mother to let her know she was meeting Scarlett and promised she would be home soon. Following her friend's directions, Brianna walked for about 25 minutes to the Birchwood train station, then boarded a bus at 1:38 p.m. Throughout the trip, she continued texting her mother, as she always did whenever she went out. At 3:13 p.m., Briana got off at the bus stop outside the Culcheth Library, where Scarlett was waiting with a boy named Eddie Ratcliffe, someone Briana had never met before. Scarlett introduced Eddie as her new friend, and with her naturally kind and open personality, Briana had no reason to be suspicious. The three of them left the bus stop at 2:02 p.m., captured on security footage walking together toward Culcheth Linear Park, laughing and chatting like carefree teenagers enjoying a peaceful weekend afternoon. On the way there, Scarlett Jenkinson pretended to be in contact with a dealer to get some illegal substances, using her own social media account to message back and forth as if she were chatting with someone else. Briana, believing they were just planning to try a little for fun, texted Scarlett at 2:15 p.m. saying, "Girl, I'll wait where I am until we get the stuff. I'm so nervous." In reality, Scarlett never intended to buy anything. Every message had been staged by her, playing both the buyer and the seller to make Briana believe the meeting was just a casual hangout. By 2:30 p.m., Briana began sensing that something wasn't right and sent a message to a close friend saying, "Jenkinson is kind of weird. I think she's pretending to have a middleman." Just a few minutes later, when the three had walked deep into the quiet woods of Culcheth Linear Park, Scarlett and Eddie suddenly pulled out a sharp object and attacked the young girl, who still believed she was simply spending an afternoon with friends. About half an hour later, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe were spotted from a distance by a woman walking her dog with her husband in the park. Realizing they had been seen, the two quickly fled the area. A few minutes later, the couple approached and discovered a young girl lying motionless, face down on the ground, surrounded by fresh, dark stains, trembling. The husband pulled out his phone and called the emergency number.
Briana left home at 12:45, walking a mile to the bus stop that Jenkinson had told her to go to, even though there was another right by her house. Jenkinson had also told her to buy a child's one-way ticket. Briana was an anxious teenager, and she texted her mum.
Within minutes, police officers and paramedics arrived at the scene. They found that the victim was still barely breathing, but her injuries were far too severe. Despite receiving immediate medical attention, Brianna Ghey could not survive. She took her final breath at 4:02 p.m. As authorities began securing the area, they started taking statements from witnesses nearby. The woman who discovered Briana told officers that she and her husband had seen a young man and a young white woman, both appearing to be around 19 or 20 years old. They both had dark curly hair. The man was wearing a dark long coat with a hood, while the woman wore a purple and black checkered jacket along with either a skirt or wide-leg pants. When they realized they were being watched, the two young individuals quickly left the park area. That same day, the Home Office ordered a forensic examination to determine the cause of Briana's passing. The results revealed that she had been struck multiple times with a sharp object, suffering nearly 30 wounds to her head, neck, chest, and back, all inflicted by a dangerous weapon resembling a hunting knife. When investigators searched the scene at Culcheth Linear Park, they found traces of the sharp object along with several small shoe prints embedded in the damp ground, suggesting that more than one person may have been involved. The first pieces of evidence quickly confirmed that this was not a random attack, but a deliberate act, shocking the entire nation. As news spread to the media, many began to speculate that the case might be connected to the victim's gender identity. However, a spokesperson for the Cheshire Police stated at the time that there was no evidence to suggest this was a hate-related incident, adding that authorities were focusing on collecting additional data from nearby surveillance cameras to clarify every detail. Detective Inspector Mike Evans of the Cheshire Police spoke to the media on the very day the tragic case occurred. stating that multiple investigations were being conducted simultaneously to clarify the exact circumstances of the incident. He affirmed that authorities were doing everything possible to uncover the truth, while also increasing patrols in the Culcheth area and assigning additional officers to remain on duty overnight to reassure local residents. Evans urged anyone who had been at Culcheth Linear Park between 1:30 p.m. and 4 p.m., or anyone who had seen Briana in the hours before her passing, to contact the police immediately with any information. He also asked nearby households and businesses to review their surveillance or dash camera footage to assist the investigation. Thanks to his public appeal, many local residents came forward, including one whose security camera near the Culcheth Library captured footage of Briana walking with two young companions, a crucial clue that opened a new direction for investigators. However, only hours later, the first wave of controversy erupted when the father of one of Briana's classmates publicly criticized the police statement, claiming, "Let's be honest, she was bullied because of her gender identity. This was clearly a hate-motivated case." Social media quickly spread messages honoring Briana, while expressing outrage at the ongoing atmosphere of discrimination faced by the transgender community. Across England, thousands gathered at St. George's Hall in Liverpool and College Green in Bristol, holding candles and flowers in deeply emotional vigils to honor the young girl, seen by many as a symbol of courage and the desire to live authentically.
At the entrance to the park where she died, the flowers left in memory of Brianna Ghey. It was down along the old railway line that a 16-year-old life was cut short, a life that, like so many, played out on social media, in TikTok videos like this, and a life that's been honoured by her family.
While the public was still reeling from the shock, the Cheshire Police investigation team continued searching for the two young individuals witnesses had seen at Culcheth Linear Park that afternoon. After collecting footage from numerous security cameras around the area, within just 24 hours, they identified both suspects, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe, each only 15 years old and living in Warrington. Shortly afterward, police carried out simultaneous arrests at their respective homes.
And officers have also released their body camera footage showing the arrests of both Scarlett and Eddie just over 24 hours after they'd killed Briana.
So you are under caution, so anything you say is getting recorded.
What if me being suspect is because I was the last person seen her, or how come I'm suspect?
Pardon?
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person that's seen her, is it?
I don't know. All the information I've received is you are a suspect. Okay.
You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright? You don't have to say anything, but you may harm you eventually when questioned. See you later on in court, and if you do say evidence, do you understand?
Unlock these. I can't explain it.
No, listen.
Right, listen.
Do it all on interview, alright? You're going to say to run call, you'll be interviewed about it, they'll ask you questions, alright?
Yeah.
When officers searched Eddie's bedroom, they found a dangerous weapon resembling a knife believed to have been used in the crime, along with biological traces on the soles of his shoes that matched the victim's DNA. This discovery strengthened the theory that the incident had been planned in advance rather than being a spontaneous act, as many had initially believed. On February 14, 2023, the Cheshire Police officially expanded the investigation and began treating the attack as a potential hate-related crime. Just one day later, Briana's funeral was held in Warrington, where friends, family members, and hundreds of people, many of whom had learned about the case through the media, came to bid her farewell in a quiet and deeply emotional ceremony. Only hours after the service, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe were formally charged in connection with the particularly serious case. Both were denied bail and transferred to a juvenile detention center. The following day, they appeared via video link for a brief hearing at the Liverpool Crown Court. where Judge David Aubrey ordered that they remain in custody until their plea and trial preparation hearing, which was scheduled for May 2nd. By July 20th, one of the defendants entered a not guilty plea, and by October 4th, the other did the same. Because both were still minors, the media was prohibited from publishing their names or photos during the early stages of the trial. However, the police investigation continued to expand, and the first details about the two teenagers' backgrounds began to emerge. Detectives discovered that Scarlett came from what appeared to be a model family, living with her parents and 3 older siblings in Warrington. She attended Culcheth High School in Cheshire, where she first met Eddie Ratcliffe when they were both just 11 years old, a seemingly harmless school friendship that would later become the origin of one of the most disturbing tragedies the local community had ever witnessed. In reality, by the age of 14, Scarlett Jenkinson had already begun showing disturbing delusions related to death and violence. She had downloaded a special browser that allowed access to hidden sites on the dark web, where extremely distorted and harmful content about real-life cruelty circulated. On September 27, 2022, Scarlett first revealed her troubling tendencies when she was caught carrying candies laced with illegal substances and giving them to a 13-year-old student. That girl later became seriously ill, and her mother immediately reported the incident to the police. The event led the school to suspend Scarlett for 5 days and arrange her transfer to Birchwood High School to avoid permanent expulsion. However, when she enrolled in the new school, administrators were not informed of the true reason for her transfer. Teachers only knew that Scarlett had once been caught with candies containing harmful substances and was being given a second chance to start over. None of them could have imagined that behind her quiet demeanor was an unstable mind capable of leading to behavior dangerous to others. At her new school, Scarlett and Briana began to grow close after Scarlett noticed that Briana was different and fascinating. They quickly became friends, often talking together in the school's inclusion room and continuing their conversations afterward through WhatsApp and Instagram. However, the relationship gradually shifted from friendship to obsession. Scarlett later admitted to child psychiatrist Dr. Richard Crutch that she felt she was about to lose Briana as a friend and had thoughts about making Briana disappear. At the same time, she became increasingly absorbed in violent content, watching numerous documentaries and taking notes about infamous criminals. Just 2 weeks before the incident, Scarlett had given Briana pills mixed with unknown substances, which left Briana in severe pain when she got home. Clutching her stomach and fearing she might be in serious danger, her mother, Esther Ghey, rushed her to a doctor, initially suspecting an acute medical issue. Meanwhile, Scarlett seemed to believe her actions could be concealed under the appearance of a supposed overdose connected to Briana's ongoing mental health struggles. On January 23, 2023, around the same time Briana fell ill, Scarlett began exchanging WhatsApp messages with Eddie in which she coldly wrote, "You know the one I told you about? Briana. I'm still trying to make her disappear, and the easiest way is to make her overdose." Later that day, Scarlett messaged Eddie again. "Briana is still sick. Maybe the pills I gave her are slowly poisoning her." That cruel plan failed when Briana gradually recovered after a few days of treatment. Had Scarlett succeeded, Briana's family might have believed their daughter's passing was a personal tragedy tied to her mental health. Meanwhile, Eddie grew increasingly curious and wanted to become more involved in Scarlett's distorted ideas. In the days before the incident, Scarlett told Eddie she worshipped dark forces and boasted that she kept numerous notes on notorious criminals like Richard Ramirez and Jeffrey Dahmer in notebooks hidden in her bedroom. although he shared some of Scarlett's morbid interests. Eddie, in fact, came from a relatively ordinary life, raised in a family considered stable and loving. In January 2023, Eddie began bragging to friends that he had bought a sharp camping knife during a family ski trip to Bulgaria. And from then on, he increasingly expressed distorted thoughts and described a feeling of a desire to destroy, a desire that only intensified under Scarlett's influence. When investigators searched Scarlett's room, they found a chilling list of 5 teenagers that Scarlett and Eddie had marked as people who should be made to disappear, all for trivial reasons. After multiple discussions, they chose Briana as their first target and planned to carry out the act using the very knife Eddie had purchased. They also drafted a detailed plan for the incident, a document later seized by police. When the suspects' mobile phones were examined, a string of messages between Scarlett and Eddie was uncovered, revealing the frightening depth of Scarlett's obsession with the victim. In the earliest exchanges, Scarlett had called Briana so different and beautiful. But not long after that, admiration had warped into a dark fixation. Having failed in the attempted poisoning, Scarlett and Eddie began seriously discussing carrying out the cruel act together, marking a complete shift in their relationship, from morbid curiosity to genuine danger. A few days before the incident, Scarlett exchanged messages with her accomplice, whom she had saved in her phone under the name Tesco John Wick, confiding that she wanted to harm Briana simply because it would be fun, saying she wanted to see pure terror on her face and hear her scream, and boasting that she had just watched her favorite movie, Sweeney Todd. She later reminded Eddie to bring the sharp weapon he had purchased, to which he replied by wondering whether the victim would scream like a man or like a girl. Just a few hours after the tragedy, Eddie even texted Scarlett asking if it was appropriate to message a girl he liked on Valentine's Day, showing no sign of remorse, and the two continued exchanging dehumanizing messages about Briana. Thanks to the handwritten plan that was recovered, the messages between the two suspects, and surveillance footage from the area, investigators were able to reconstruct precisely the chain of events leading up to the day Briana's life was taken. As preparations for the trial were underway, the case sparked a wave of outrage and mourning across the United Kingdom. On February 17, 2023, an LGBT-themed radio station called Gaydio announced that it would join forces with other stations nationwide to broadcast a 1-minute moment of silence at 11 a.m. in memory of Brianna Ghey and as a stand against discrimination toward the transgender community. The initiative was inspired by an emotional article written by transgender radio host Stephanie Hurst, who shared about the prejudice and pain that transgender people often endure in society. Around the same time, Briana's friends created a memorial account on a short video platform and a GoFundMe page to support her family. Within just 3 days, donations exceeded £70,000, with more than 36,000 people contributing and sending messages of sympathy. Briana's parents expressed heartfelt gratitude for the community's love and generosity, explaining that the funds were used to cover the funeral expenses, renovate her bedroom, and create keepsake jewelry for family members to carry a piece of her with them. The remaining amount was donated to a charity supporting youth mental health in the United Kingdom, as a way to continue spreading the kindness that Briana had always shared with others. However, amid the wave of mourning and support for Briana, some social media users took advantage of the case to spread false content, even editing images of her gravesite and replacing her name with male pronouns, showing a serious lack of respect for the victim's identity. In response to the offensive and hateful comments, Briana's parents were forced to delete their personal account on the short video platform, to avoid further emotional harm. As the situation worsened, many politicians and public figures spoke out in her defense. Labour Party Member of Parliament Dan Butler wrote on Twitter, "Anyone on social media who is using Brianna's birth name and deliberately erasing her identity should be ashamed of their actions." Echoing his sentiment, MP Nadia Whittome stated that Brianna deserved the chance to grow into a beautiful young woman and to live in a world where transgender people are safe and respected. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn also posted a tribute, saying that Brianna's life was taken simply because she wanted to be herself. Despite the widespread compassion and solidarity, Brianna's family faced another legal challenge. Under current United Kingdom law, minors cannot be issued a gender recognition certificate, meaning Brianna's death certificate would likely list her birth gender. This sparked a massive online campaign urging the government to grant Brianna a gender recognition certificate as a gesture of dignity and respect for her true identity. The petition quickly gained over 133,000 signatures, but was ultimately rejected by the British government, which stated that the existing policy strikes the right balance and that they had no plans to change it. By September 2023, Brianna's mother, Esther Ghey, had launched a meaningful campaign in Warrington aimed at introducing mindfulness and mental health education programs into local schools. The initiative quickly gained strong support from the community, raising more than £80,000 in a short period of time. Esther shared that this effort was not only about helping students learn how to manage their emotions and cope with pressure, but also about creating a lasting legacy to honor her daughter, a young girl who always believed in kindness, empathy, and the power of love. While in custody, Eddie Ratcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson continued to look for every possible way to lessen the sentence they might face. After his arrest, Eddie began experiencing severe communication difficulties, except when speaking with his mother. Court-appointed psychologists evaluated him and diagnosed him with autism spectrum disorder, accompanied by selective mutism. As a result, during the upcoming trial, the court allowed Eddie to communicate by typing his answers on a computer, with his responses displayed on a screen for the jury and read aloud by an intermediary. He was also permitted to have his favorite magazine and a small stress relief toy to help him remain calm throughout the proceedings. However, many observers believed these behaviors might have been part of a strategy to elicit sympathy from the jury. As for Scarlett, she also underwent multiple psychiatric evaluations, and doctors concluded that she suffered from a severe antisocial behavior disorder with a very limited capacity for empathy. Because of this, the jury was informed in advance that both defendants might display unusual emotions or reactions during the trial as a result of their psychological conditions. Even so, many people felt they were being treated with special leniency, something Briana, the victim in this case, never had the chance to receive. The official trial began on November 27, 2023, at the Manchester Crown Court, because the case continued to attract intense public attention, and both defendants were minors. The court imposed strict information restrictions, prohibiting the disclosure of their real identities. Throughout the proceedings, Scarlett was referred to as Girl X and Eddie as Boy Y. Additionally, a gender identity expert was invited to explain Brianna's transgender identity to the 14-member jury to ensure they fully understood and evaluated the case fairly. During the first hearing, both defendants insisted that they never expected the other to act and tried to shift blame onto one another, claiming they were merely bystanders. However, the prosecution emphasized that both defendants were intelligent, high-functioning, and came from stable family backgrounds, yet displayed a disturbing desire to cause harm and had planned their actions weeks in advance. and the fact that Briana trusted them and considered them friends was regarded as an aggravating factor, making the crime even more reprehensible in the eyes of the jury. In her testimony before the jury, Scarlett admitted that she often had dark fantasies, but insisted she never intended to make them real. However, the forensic psychiatrist's report revealed the opposite. Scarlett had confessed to striking Briana multiple times with a sharp object, and even stated that the act made her feel fascinated. She also admitted that she intended to keep a part of Briana's body as a souvenir, specifically mentioning her beautiful eyes. Meanwhile, Eddie's defense team argued that it was Scarlett who had asked him to bring the dangerous weapon to the park, and that she was the only one with a clear plan to harm Briana. They claimed Scarlett had exploited Eddie's psychological condition to manipulate him, turning him into a tool for her own agenda, according to their argument. Although Eddie might have been the one who invited Briana to the park and discussed the plan, it was all part of a delusional fantasy, and Scarlett was the one who actually carried out the act. In contrast, Scarlett's legal team accused Eddie of being the one who directly inflicted the injuries, citing forensic evidence showing a significant amount of Briana's biological traces found on Eddie's clothing, while none were detected on Scarlett's. After 3 tense weeks of proceedings, the jury finally reached a verdict. On December 20th, 2023, both Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe were found guilty in the particularly serious case involving Brianna Ghey. The following day, Judge Amanda Yip declared that full disclosure of the case is necessary because this is a matter of exceptional public interest, and ordered the lifting of the anonymity restrictions that had previously been in place. Immediately after the ruling, the real identities of the 2 defendants were made public, and Britain was left stunned to learn that those responsible for Brianna's tragedy were only 15 years old, teenagers who seemed to still be in their innocent years but had now become the focus of one of the most haunting cases in the nation's recent history. On February 2, 2024, the official sentencing took place at the Manchester Crown Court. Scarlett Jenkinson was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years before being eligible for parole, while Eddie Ratcliffe received the same sentence with a minimum term of 20 years.
I have weighed all the aggravating and mitigating factors that apply to each of you. Although I have taken the same starting point, I have concluded that the final minimum terms must be different. In Scarlett's case, the aggravating features are significant and would have led to a substantial uplift to the starting point, but for the mitigation, particularly that relating to maturity and mental disorder. There must still be an uplift, but it will be moderated. In Eddie's case, I find that the balance to be struck between aggravating factors, which are not quite as high as in Scarlett's case, and the mitigation I have identified is such as to cancel each other out. In saying that, I have taken account of all the medical evidence and accept the diagnosis of ASD has some impact, but the extent to which it reduced your culpability in the circumstances of this offending is limited. This was undoubtedly a very serious offence with multiple aggravating factors. That is the context in which I impose minimum terms which are lengthy for offenders of your age, albeit significantly less than an equivalent sentence for an adult. The parole board will have to decide if and when either or both of you can be released. That will only happen if you no longer pose a danger. If you are released, you will remain on licence for life and you may be recalled to prison. I will now sentence each of you. You may remain seated. In both cases, the relevant statutory surcharge will apply. Scarlett Jenkinson, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 22 years less the 352 days that you have spent on remand. Eddie Ratcliffe, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 20 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand. Please take the defendants to the cells and their legal teams will come and see them before they go to begin their sentences. Thank you.
During sentencing, Judge Amanda Yip described the case as an act of exceptional brutality, noting that the injuries on Brianna's body revealed a prolonged and violent attack. She stated that Brianna may not have lost consciousness immediately, which made her final moments a form of both physical and psychological torment. Judge Yip emphasized that the crime was clearly premeditated, declaring that Scarlett acted out of a distorted and obsessive desire to cause harm, while Eddie displayed hostility toward Brianna's transgender identity. She further pointed out that both had deliberately chosen Brianna because they believed she was an easy target. Finally, the judge concluded that the medical assessments of the defendants' psychological conditions could not be regarded as justification for their actions, since both were fully aware that what they were doing was wrong. On March 7th of the same year, the Ministry of Justice announced that both Scarlett and Eddie had filed requests for permission to appeal their sentences. However, on April 16th, the department confirmed that their appeals had been rejected for being submitted past the legal deadline. When the sentences were handed down, both Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe remained cold and emotionless, showing almost no reaction. After the trial, in a statement to the Warrington Guardian, Scarlett's parents said they were deeply remorseful and fully agreed with the jury's verdict. They also offered a sincere apology to Brianna's family, her friends, and the wider community affected by this heartbreaking case. On the victim's side, Brianna's mother, Esther Ghey, shared that she had lost all sense of empathy for those responsible for her daughter's tragedy because neither of them has shown any remorse. She vowed that she would never forget Brianna's courage and unshakable strength, saying her daughter will always be remembered as someone who was never afraid to be herself. Brianna's father, Peter Spooner, also expressed deep pride in his daughter, saying he was so proud of Brianna and will never stop loving her. Though the pain remains, both Esther and Peter have turned their loss into positive action. They have partnered with Warrington North MP Charlotte Nichols in a national campaign urging the government to fund mindfulness and mental health education programs in all schools across England, with the hope of preventing similar tragedies and helping the next generation grow up in a safer, kinder, and more understanding environment. On the first anniversary of the tragic case, a solemn memorial ceremony was held at the Golden Square Shopping Center in Warrington, where more than 1,000 residents, friends, relatives, and local leaders gathered to honor and remember Brianna Ghey. The event was deeply emotional, featuring heartfelt speeches about the young girl's courage, character, and inner strength, serving as a powerful reminder that the light Brianna left behind will never fade. Just a few days later, on February 18th, a memorial concert titled Live Your Truth took place at the Brewers, located in Manchester's Gay Village. The event was not only a tribute to Brianna, but also a celebration of love and authenticity, encouraging everyone to live truthfully as themselves. The concert raised more than £1,700, and all proceeds were donated to the Peace in Mind campaign and the Mindfulness in Schools project in the United Kingdom, both dedicated to placing mental health coaches in every school in Warrington and eventually throughout the country as a lasting legacy inspired by Brianna's story. The story of Brianna Ghey is not only a heartbreaking case recorded in England's history, but also a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of discrimination, indifference, and the emotional pain young people can suffer when they lack understanding and protection. Brianna left this world at 16, yet her courage, kindness, and determination to live authentically continue to inspire thousands. Her story reminds us that every word, every action, no matter how small, can save a soul in despair. Thank you for listening to today's story on True Crime Documentary, where we not only recount real-life cases, but also remember, reflect, and remind one another to live with compassion every day. If you were moved by Brianna's journey, please share this video to spread the message of empathy and justice. Don't forget to leave a comment in her memory. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story on True Crime Documentary. See you in the next video, where together, we continue to seek the truth and give voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves.